Welcome to The Queen's Lair, a lifestyle podcast. Get inspired by our latest tips and information about small business, entrepreneurship, natural hair, travel, food, and even relationships. Stay tuned for another great episode. I am your host, Renee Patrice. Hey everybody, welcome back to my podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. I really appreciate all of the love that I'm receiving on this podcast because of you guys, my listeners. I'm telling you, like I'm almost overwhelmed because of you guys. This podcast has literally become another stream of income for my business, which I so appreciate because, as you guys know, and I talked about it before, at the very top of the pandemic, literally half of my clientele had to drop off, because of financial issues and sicknesses and all of that. And it has really been an interesting ride since then. We're almost a year into the pandemic now, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. So we all have had to pivot. There goes that word again, pivot. We're taking that word from 2020 and bringing it over to 2021. We are still on this journey to pivot our businesses to work differently, than we're used to, and I think now we've had 10, 11, 12 months or so to kind of, let it mesh and come together. So things are going, they're moving, and changing every day. So we got to roll with the changes. But thank you so much for that, because that definitely, it helps out the business. It helps out with monthly subscriptions and things that we need to run the business. So I really appreciate that. Okay, so I did say a few podcasts ago, if you have questions about anything that you would like me to cover and, create an episode about, please let me know. So I got this question pretty recently, and honestly, it's a question I get all the time. And that is, how many times should I post on social media? Well, that is a loaded question. It really depends on the niche that you are a part of. Are you a foodie person? Are you news? Are you a blogger? It really depends. You have to read your audience. There are some people that they only come in once a week and drop a post, but it's the dopest post ever and it gets tons of engagement, and then they disappear for another 7 days. I personally would not suggest that, but there are people who know their audience and they know how their audience is going to interact with their business, with their brand, okay? But here is what I have found over the past several years of doing social media management and marketing and all of that. This is what I have found the roundabout average for across different mediums of social media, just the average of what you want to strive for, okay? So here is the very first one. I'll go with Facebook because Facebook is still king. Facebook, you want to post once, possibly twice a day, okay? That's usually enough for Facebook. Facebook is a little bit of a more mature crowd. These are people's maybe older aunties and uncles and even some grandparents. Young people are still using it too, but it tends to be more of the more mature crowd. So once or twice a day is usually going to be good there. Instagram. Okay. This is totally up to you how, you want to do this. But like I said, read the room. And by that, I mean, read your audience and see how they respond to you. I used to go hard in the really early stages of Instagram, maybe the first year that it was up, and I was posting 5-6 times a day. And I'll be honest with you, posting 5-6 times a day versus the once a day that I post now, not much of a difference other than, I can't even say it's not much of a difference. it didn't make a major difference posting those 6 times a day. I actually get more engagement now because people tend to see, oh, she posts once a day. I tend to post around the same time each day. But it really depends on the traffic and what's going on. But the once a day usually works for me. And sometimes I skip days in between. But, like I said, I know that my brand can handle that, but there are some people who are looking for more. So you got to be consistent with posting. If you post at least once a day, every day, you should be cool. You should be fine. Somewhere on your feed, or do a reels, or do a story, something. Sometimes I won't post on my timeline, and I'll only post in stories for like a week or two or whatever, just to test to see how things go. But yeah, a combination of those things usually works. All right. But as far as like posting on your actual timeline, just a regular post, not talking about a reel, which can actually show on your timeline as well, just a regular post once a day. You should be doing at least once a day. Twice per day is fine as well, but at least once a day. Okay. Now, sticking with Instagram, and we're looking at stories. I find, or what I have found, is that I like to do stories every day. Some people don't necessarily like to do that, but you can be in your stories a couple times for the week, 2, maybe 3 times a week, a few stories at a time. So if you think, okay, I'm going to do 15 stories this week, right? So that's 15 individual stories. Split it up over 3 days. So let's say Monday, do 5 stories, something that goes together, whatever it is you want to share. And then maybe Wednesday, and then, maybe Friday, however you want to split it up. For me personally, I am in the entrepreneur, branding, social media, marketing, PR space, with a little sprinkle of lifestyle and event planning on the side. So I like to post in my stories every day, whether I post on my timeline or not. I may not post on my timeline, but I definitely will post in my stories a few times a day. So I would say maybe anywhere between 3 to 5 stories per day. And that's just me, because I know that that's what works. I get a lot of engagement in my stories. I get a lot of people reacting to my stories. I also ask questions in my stories. I usually do sometimes on Tuesdays. I haven't done one in a while, and I probably will do one next week. I do like a Talk Tuesdays where people can, ask their questions about things, whatever it is that I'm talking about. It could be about branding. It could be about social media. It could be about, anything. Sometimes personal questions, people just want to know about me, and my life and what I do. So, so it just depends. But I find I get a lot of engagement in stories. Just for me, as far as my brand is concerned, I get a ton of engagement in stories. So that is why I know that even if I don't post on my timeline, I'm definitely going to post in my stories every day. Okay, Twitter. Twitter. Oh, gosh. Well, I don't want to bash Twitter. But I also wanted to mention something about Twitter, too, which I saw they did recently. Twitter, for me, is not the biggest concern. For my brand, it's not a thing. It really isn't. When I am on Twitter, when I do tweet, I usually tweet major events. So if I usually live tweet and live Facebook. When I say live Facebook, I mean constantly posting on Facebook when there's a significant event going on. So when the inauguration was happening, I was live tweeting. And I always get great engagement with that. And I'm telling you, I could not post anything on Twitter for 6 months. When I come back on there and start, tweeting some whatever event is going on, I'm telling you, people come out of the woodwork like, oh, she's back. It really does get good engagement from live tweeting. But as far as like everyday stuff, that's not what really sustains my brand. It's not really important to my brand, but I do think it's important that I have a Twitter and that it stays active. I just don't personally curate, my own stuff for it. I usually have things that funnel through to Twitter. So if I post on Facebook, a lot of times I will click the little Twitter button so that it will go over to Twitter, just to update something on Twitter every now and then. Twitter for me is a lot about reading different timelines of other brands, people, and retweeting them. So Twitter for me is much more political. I will retweet a lot of political stuff. People who have known me for a while or heard me speak on my podcast, I had a whole political life for like 13 years before I left and came to do Onyx Queen Media business full time 10 years ago, a little bit over 10 years ago. It'll be 11 years in July. So I do still love the political stuff and the political game and all of that. So I do retweet a lot of that, a lot of that stuff. And I retweet things that are happening in different cities and just kind of like more newsy sort of stuff. So that's usually what I do for Twitter. So Twitter, now there's something new with Twitter called fleets. So you have tweets and then you have fleets. Fleets are actually just like stories on Instagram. So I guess they're trying to mimic, what Facebook has done with Facebook and Instagram, which is have stories. So you can now post stories on Twitter. So now that is a thing, that actually works very well for me because I can take my stories that I post on Instagram and I can repurpose them to a completely different audience on Twitter. So that actually has helped me get back more into Twitter than I was. I'm usually just a retweeter on Twitter, but so now they have fleets and you can post in the fleets just like how you post in your stories. So I would say 3 times a day, 3 to 5 times a day on Twitter, and that could be a combination of the fleets and the tweets. All right. What is the next one? Snapchat. I have a username on Snapchat. I have not logged into Snapchat in years, probably more than 2 years. But again, Snapchat is very similar to stories. They're the things that last for 24 hours. As a matter of fact, Snapchat stories, Instagram stories was like the direct competitor, for Snapchat. So you kind of keep that same thing going with Snapchat, just like how you posting your stories on Instagram. You can repurpose your stories over there 5 times. 5 times. Some people say 5 times a week. I'm going to say 3 to 5 times. Not every single day, but 2, maybe 3 times. Think about 15 stories and then put 5 together, 5 together, 5 together. Because that's why they're called stories, because strung together, they tell a story, right? So yeah, you can kind of keep that where that is. There's LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like the professional Facebook. LinkedIn, I definitely am on LinkedIn. I probably go to my LinkedIn page a few times a week. I would say maybe three times a week, somewhere in there. And I try to post on there at least a couple times a week. That's just for me with LinkedIn. Now, as with any social media, I will tell you, I really believe that you should post any social media that you're on. You should at least try to post at least once per day, at least, just to keep things updated. I definitely would not be posting on LinkedIn every single day. But like I said, depending on the niche that you're in, if you're a real estate agent, if you're, something that's like the up and coming stuff all the time, that's constantly moving, maybe the once or twice a day will work for you. That I see a lot of coaches on there, things like that. But it does have a news feed. And you do have the ability to click like on things, on other people's, stuff, and, sharing from there and all of that. But for me personally, a few times a week, whatever days that I'm checking it, and I probably check it, I would say about 3 times a week, I will post something each of those 3 days, So this is the rundown. So the rundown for Facebook, once or twice, Instagram, once or twice per day, Instagram stories. Think that you're going to do, I would say, keep in your mind like 15 stories and then split that up over the time, right? Twitter, a few times a day, split it up between the fleets and the tweets, maybe 3 to 5 times a day, split it up between the two. LinkedIn, if you can do once a day, it's amazing. If you're a person that only goes on, a couple times a week, whenever you do check, if it's 2-3 times a week, post something, at least one thing on those days, right? Snapchat pretty much works the same thing like the stories. Think about, 15 things. And I don't mean you have to do 15 separate things. Repurpose your content, because you have to remember your audiences will be different in different places, I know somebody also mentioned to me too, talking about TikTok. TikTok, if you are into music, if you are into, challenges and things like that, TikTok is definitely going to be the place for you. It's very visual in that way. It's about videos. So if you're in the food space and you make quick, bursts of videos, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, that kind of thing, definitely do that. But remember, if you are an avid Instagram user, know that Instagram has you covered with all of that. So if you decide that you don't want to be over at TikTok because the tick and the talk is just too much and the snap and the chat is just too much, you can do all of that in one place, and you don't have to separate and try to get people to follow you in different places. If you're on Instagram, Instagram has the news feed where you can post. Reels is the equivalent to TikTok, okay? And then stories is the equivalent to Snapchat. So if you want to keep it all in one spot, which I tend to do, I don't post on TikTok. I have accounts there, so you may see my accounts there, but you ain't gonna see nothing posted. I don't post on TikTok and I don't post on Snapchat, but that's just me. Because for my brand, it's just not the thing. Okay. And I was on both of them, posting for a long time and doing stuff on there, but it just didn't kick off for my brand. So I realized when I started to put that stuff over on Instagram into my reels and my stories, I got tremendous engagement. So that's what works for my brand. You need to go test on your end to see what works for your brand. And if you need a social media strategy and you need to really sit down and figure out what it is that you want to do for your social media, maybe you need graphics for your social media. We have all different types of packages for all different types of clientele. If you just need us to create all of your graphics for 30 days, where all you have to do is go into your phone and just upload them into your social medias, let us know. We do starter packages to get you jump started. We will do where we don't even have to run your social media for you. If you would rather be hands-on with the social media, but you have no idea what to post, we will create all of the posts for you, bundle them up in a nice package, and we send them to you, and then you can use them however you want. Okay? So it's really up to you on how you're going to interact with your people, but you need to learn what it is that they're looking for. Okay? And again, that word again is pivot. If you see that your folks are loving recipes, we'll post more recipes. If you see that they love learning when you sit in front of the camera and explain things, then post more videos of you explaining things, because guess what? Videos do very well with the algorithm. Don't worry about the algorithm and what it's going to do today and tomorrow. The algorithm keeps on changing. But we do know that videos do very well. Anything with you going live does well. So pay attention to your audience. Pay attention to the different changes that are taking place, and stay in the circle of what's happening around you. We just had inauguration. We have a new administration now. Every now and then you want to maybe say a little piece about what's going on in the world so that people can see that this is a real person behind this. This is not something that's on autopilot. People want to get to know not just the brand. And if you have products, not just the products, they want to learn, sometimes come from behind the veil and show your face, and say, hey, I'm so-and-so CEO of XYZ brand or whatever. And trust me, the engagement will definitely start to move up. Okay? If you have any other questions, feel free to email me, info@onyxqueenmedia.com. And if you want to engage with me on social media, @onyxqueenmedia, and I will talk to you soon. Bye, you guys.